Okay. All right. Now we're ready to roll. Okay. I am going to start off by we're going to just kind of skim through my X feed, see what's going on, and let's see what's happening. No idea. Okay. I'm dry running this with you guys. So we're going to see what's happening in the news. Well, Andy knows 17 seconds ago says UC Berkeley, Antifa, and the far left extremists congratulate themselves for trying to shut down the TPUSA event. Oh,
It is our
awesome.
time to continue to mobilize, to organize,
That,
to educate our peers, to make these fascists know that every time they
well, the
come
one encouraging thing is, you know how these cameramen usually work? They zoom right in on the crowd. What is that, like maybe 30 people?
the gas campaign, they are not walked off.
Jeez, man,
Can I get one loud? Fuck the
that's
fascists!
all. Oh, okay, Pam Bondi, 2 hours ago, Justice Department attorney just secured a further administrative stay through Thursday at midnight. Supreme Court further judicial upheaval from the SNAP child nutrition programs. More about all the illegals getting on those. China's released new footage of the stealth drone GJ-11 Phantom Dragon. I bet you that's technology they did not steal from Americans. We have a plane that looks something like that. I can't remember. Do you know what I'm talking about? Looks exactly kind of like this. And I'm not a big plane person. So if y'all know, but that looks a lot like one of our planes we've had. But again, China doesn't steal anything from America. Confucius Institutes, what? We don't know nothing about none of that. The political party named after Trump appears in Belgium, Politico. Abbreviation of Trump stands for, oh, please, y'all, I ain't even going to attempt that. That ain't happening. Nope, not even gonna try. Y'all can read that out loud to yourselves. Okay. Mm, Didn't do crew is going nowhere. No matter how many leftists complain, we're back 6 years. We set dormant. Best of luck in the war. And oh, by the way, you all failed to dox him. Oh, this dude right here. Can I be honest with you? Again, I don't mean to disparage anybody, but I've seen this person post stuff about like, I'll figure out who you are. Like, there's some kind of like hacker or something. They kind of boast a lot about their abilities. I ain't trying to make no legit hacker mad or whatever, but I don't, most of the people that can do that sort of thing don't brag about it. You know what I'm saying? Like the most lethal person in a bar or at a baseball game, the most well trained military person or whatever, they never brag about that stuff. They just don't need to. Usually people that brag, yeah, thank you, Cascade. Usually people that brag, you know, they're not the ones that you should worry about. White House using DoorDash data to measure inflation. Oh Lord. Jim, yeah, I'm telling you, sometimes I get sent. Jasmine Crockett melts down as she has to pay for her security. Well, Lord help, like every other person in the world. So these people feel like they're privileged. It's like, mm,
I think
they'll go out and do this leftist talking point about saving taxpayer money, but in reality, then they go out and do this. And it's like, you Americans should pay for my security because I am that special.
I think that it's really a good question as to why a member of Congress needs to pay for security out of money that they go and raise instead of focusing on making sure that they use that money to educate voters about why it is that their candidacy matters. I do think that it does people like me a disservice when
Mhm.
you are so outspoken. And then what happens is instead of you being able to put all your dollars into campaigning, instead you've got to do things like pay for your security. But I kind of value my life, so it is what it is. And it is
You
what
know
it is.
who
I
also,
think
as they whine about the government shutdown, you know who also didn't miss a paycheck? Jasmine Crockett. So miss me with that crap. No, you don't have talent, Trump says in reference to the American workforce. What? Wait a minute. What? No, you don't have talent, Trump says in reference to the American workforce. What? Ingram, if you want to raise wages for American workers, you can't flood the country with foreign workers. POTUS, I agree, but you also, wait a minute, bring in talent. Now, come on now, hang on.
H-1B visa thing will not be a big priority for your administration.
Hold
If you
on.
want to
Come
raise
on
wages
now.
for American workers, you can't flood the country with tens of thousands or
Well,
hundreds of
I
thousands
agree,
of foreign
but
workers.
you also do have to bring in talent. When
Well, we
a
have
country
plenty of talented
no,
people
no, you
here.
don't. No, you don't.
We don't have
You're
talented people
no,
here?
you don't have certain talents, and people have to learn. You can't take people off an unemployment like an unemployment line and say, I'm going to put you into a factory where we're going to make missiles, or I'm going to put
How did
you
we
into-
ever do it before? H-1B visa.
See, this is where I do not understand Trump. Now, again, this is a, y'all might need to grab onto your armchairs and get your bucket of popcorn. I'm liable to tick some people off, but just being honest with you, and I've said it since the beginning. I never really liked Trump's tweets. He got real petty for me with, look at the ratings of The Apprentice. I was like, come on, you're the president. Why are you doing that? And some people like it. So I don't, it is what it is. Teachers their own, right? But like, I don't understand why he does stuff like this. It's kind of like, MAGA is America first. MAGA is about making America great again. So it's like offer Americans the opportunity to get an education in these areas, right? To get grants or, don't make it about DEI anymore. That was hurting us. And he talked about it on the campaign trail, do it on merit. That would encourage kids to get back in school. Why do you think you have an issue with people having afforded the ability to train and do these jobs? Because they've been beat down so much, especially if you're talking just about like white men in general. I'm just going to be honest about it. They're like, it is they're discouraged right now, and I've talked to you about that many a times. How do you think they feel once they believe that, hey, they actually got an opportunity to advance and they don't have to deal with a bunch of racism in college, or a bunch of bullying by professors or whatever? You're going to see an uptick in people willing to get into those you know get into those areas of expertise that they need to do some of these jobs. And then other jobs, I don't you incentivize people to be lazy. It's like you put some families on food stamps so much they're having children just so they can up their benefits every month. Or on the other hand, you have, again, I'll go back to this, discouraged single people in this country. Look at how they feel right now. They have to hold down two jobs just to afford the car payment for the car that they have, much less get an apartment on their own. If they get an apartment, it has to be with a flipping roommate. So you've got two guys that, share a 2 bedroom, 1 bath apartment for over $2,000 a month. So by the time they get done paying their rent and all their bills and then their car payments, and Lord knows if they need gas or want to go out to eat, or, every once a week or something, they have to have a roommate in order to do that. Like, I think most Americans would agree that the one thing that the driving force to be whoever we elect or who we put our support behind would be a person that recognizes that a man should be able to go hold down a job. I'm not talking about McDonald's, but I am talking about if you get, into a decent factory job, that job should sustain you enough to be, if well, you keep that job for 2 or 3 years, that you've accrued enough income to where you can go put down on a house and buy yourself a home, not a mansion, a 1 level, 2 bedroom, 1 bath rancher, if that's how you want to put it or whatever. But they just don't see any promise of that. That's why they're all still living at their parents' house at 30 years old, because they might have had a job for 10 years, but they know they just can't afford it on their own. Now, again, they could roommate up together, but then there lies the problem. So I don't understand why he kind of says stuff like that. I don't think it helps him. That's just my opinion. FSD saves lives. It happened to me tonight going through New Mexico from the Tesla shareholders meeting. The head-on collision, 75 miles per hour, geez, with oncoming traffic, was averted. Just a broken mirror, busted window, and a bit of a shaken mind. Thank you, Elon. I will tell you, but let me see if this doesn't have any volume. Something like this similar happened to my friend Christy. She has a Tesla, and she talked about how somebody cut her off on the interstate she was running. She said, I was going like 75 miles an hour. Well, the flow of traffic. This person um, uh, cut her off and like hit her front. I think it was passenger side tire, I believe. And she says she knows that Tesla is what prevented her from wrecking. That it was the independence, the wheelbase was allowing the one wheel to like not turn as much, so she didn't skid or slide. She accredited not wrecking to that Tesla. Now again, I wasn't with her, but that's what she says. Um, Emily Cap scores again. Research Dr. Ralph Barrick at his lab in North Carolina and in China likely caused SARS-CoV-2. Oh, Lord, here we go. At his lab in North Carolina and China, now we have proof of what we've long suspected, Barrick's close connections to the CIA. Oh, my word. Why has he never tested under oath about his work? New docs reveal quarterly contacts between Ralph Barrick, who exported blueprints for creating coronavirus to the Wuhan lab, and American top spies to the spy agency, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Barrick was also approached by the CIA about a coronavirus project in 2015. Well, we know stuff was going on in 2014 where we did all the digging about this initially. Well, a lot of us lost our channels, by the way. Shout out to people getting them back. By the way, Red Pill got his channel back. I just saw that like last week. I think iPod got his channel back. Anyway, so Barack was also approached by CIA about a coronavirus project 2015. ODNI in 2021 dismissed the intel pointed to a lab leak as misinformation. Yeah, remember that. The risk implicated Barack, their own bioengineering expert. Tulsi Gabbard totally disbanded the ODNI Biological Threats Office earlier this year following questions from me about this suppression of intel. What? Tulsi Gabbard totally disbanded the ODNI Biological Threats Office. Why would you do that? Earlier this year, maybe they consolidated a lot of stuff again. This dude, this person, I don't know, because if you remember, this was posted by somebody else. So again, they did a lot of that during Doge, where they said that there was too many people doing the same job, so they consolidated a lot of them. Anyway, this is from we don't know, redacted to this person. Hi, Ralph. I hope this email finds you well. I believe you are still planning on attending the ad hoc exercise on the 15th of September. If you are, that immediately makes me feel like it's somebody in the UK or something because it's got 15 September. Most Americans would say September 15th, right? If you are, you could spare a little time before or after the exercise that day. My colleague, like CC, would like to gauge your interest ability to draft a short paper outlining some of the items you discussed during your last quarterly meeting. Can elaborate on what exactly he's looking for from you, either person via email. If you think you might be able to dedicate some time to this task, please let us know. What? Ralph, I just wanted to reach out again to see if you would have a chance next week to discuss possible projects. Okay, this is September 24th of 2015. Well, I mean, like, we all know, we all know, we all know something doesn't smell right. It hadn't in a long time. The new evidence also shows Brock gave a presentation on the ODNI in January of 2020 stating COVID may have emerged from a lab. Barrick said the Wuhan Institute of Virology worked on thousands of coronaviruses at a low biosafety level. What Barack omitted was he submitted a grant application in 2018 to make COVID-like viruses while concealing the shoddy standards in Wuhan, jotting in the margins of a draft of the grant application that Americans would freak out if they knew. Well, sounds legit. Institute of Virology sequenced thousands, cultured multiple groups to be bat coronavirus, pre-epidemic strains. They have reported a bat virus that is similar to 2019 CoV, which contains big deletions in RBD. Let's see, hold on. The modeling team has used the data to build models, risk of a revolution spillover. We know, I'm talking to y'all. We know most of this. Commented bears in the U.S., these recombinant SARS-CoV are studied under BSL-3, not BSL-2, especially important for those who are able to bind and replicate the primary human cells in China, might be growing these virus Does that grow? That sounds like what I'd say. Growing. We forget the G. Oh. Under BS12, U.S. researchers will likely freak out. I wonder why. I did a whole dig a while back about I think I've talked to you about it one other time about Fauci's Monkey Island. Not many people know about Fauci's Monkey Island, where they just go pick up these poor monkeys they've all shoved out on an island here in America, scoop them all up, send them to a lab, time to do some research. And if they pop out of a semi, littered throughout the country, no worries. Just throw out a couple bananas in your backyard. If your child starts growing a third leg and a second nose, there's nothing to see here. Private equity firms and real estate investors brought 1/3 of all single family residential properties sold in the second quarter 2025. It's almost like God heard me. From what I was saying before about people not being able to buy a house if they had a good job, worked really hard, had that job for a while. There's also this that comes into play too. So I'm glad I scrolled into this where they're buying up all these houses and turn them into rental properties. You'll own nothing and be happy. That is an increase from 27% from the first quarter and the highest percentage in the last 5 years per CNBC. This must be stopped. Look at this. Buying a home in 1985 versus 2025. Baby boomers, 23,000 to 83,000. So that's the blue is the median household income, and the dark blue, like navy, is the median home price. The most household incomes were $23,000. House 83,000. Now it's 74, house 468. That's why these poor, younger people are just feel so disenfranchised and so frustrated. That's why they don't care about any foreign country at all, us aiding any foreign country. I think that's why so many of them get bent out of shape over all this narrative around Israel is they are themselves, this is a generation after like 9/11 and stuff. They're like, I get it, something happened, but you got to worry about Americans. Like, why is everybody losing their mind over this foreign country and mad because we're saying we don't want to send foreign aid to any foreign country? And then there's the group of people that are trying to somehow morph that into being anti-Semitic or like you hate all Jewish people. And it's like, what? Now, I mean, there are those people out there too. I'm just trying to talk in general about people losing their minds, and some people are just sitting around there getting fed up. It's like being called in 2015 where you were with Trump, in 2016 when so many of us were called all these names: racist, bigot, homophobe, Islamophobe, name the thing, right? Vaccine deniers in 2020. We've been called everything. So that's why now it's like when people get called anti-Semitic, they're just like, we'll just tack that on to the Pokemon card. We're gonna collect all the balls. They just it doesn't hit like it used to because people get sick of being called a name. And I don't care whichever aisle you sit on there, whether you're more pro-Israel or anti. I hate using Israel. I need to quit doing that too. Pro-Israeli government, or you're against what Netanyahu's done, or for like feel like Gaza was victimized in it all, whichever one, right? I'm talking broadly overall. Like most younger Americans here, they're not as controlled by that narrative of needing to be either or. They just don't want to send any aid, period. I've talked to quite a few young people. Thankfully, I have the ability in my life to kind of talk to groups of them because of my sister's kids. And most of them, good luck them knowing anything about politics in general. They don't care. They care about what's costing them a lot of money, whether that be their rent or their car payment or their grocery bill. That's what they're concerned about. I'm going to be honest with you. They're like, I don't care what's happening in a foreign country. I care about, can I afford to live on my own? Okay, so breaking, DOJ has formally notified UC Berkeley that they're launching a full investigation in the university after they failed to protect conservatives attending a TPUSA event last night. Oh, Lord. Her AAG Harmeet Dillon, I think I've seen her do some interviews. I think she was at the RNC, right? What she had like the Trump RNC thing. I think she was one of the speakers. Anyway, mob assault and thuggish intimidation of attendees exercising their First Amendment rights are unacceptable. And I feel the same way overall. I kind of watching this infighting in the right where I'm hearing these words being flung around. It's very alarming to me when I hear like people on the right using words like platforming. And the fact that then I watched like people that said they were never Trumpers now going on stages telling what MAGA is and who's in MAGA and who shouldn't be in MAGA. And I'm like, yo, bitch, you were the people saying you was never going to vote for Trump. So the same people that mocked MAGA and couldn't stand Trump and said they were never going to vote for Trump are now standing on stages telling everybody what MAGA is. Again, I must have missed the memo, but that ain't flying with me. So hey, yeah, people should be able to speak on college campuses. Period. Left, right, in the middle. I don't care. Nobody should be allowing people to, I don't know, threaten people's lives and shit. Men only. How do you handle your periods? Oh no. Some men have periods. See, this is what we got going on. Like so much people with scattered brain cells everywhere. It's like, where do you look? Which direction do you point me in? And we ain't talking about this. We're talking about the 3-eye atlas thing. People arguing whether that's not an asteroid or a UFO or holy crap. We got a lot of stuff going on in the world. All right, Brad. High five. Donald Trump is betraying American people over. See people coming after this again, but my X feed's been weird. I've talked to y'all about that several times where it's like people get sent my For You stuff. It's just weird. Iran announced the completion of a major operation to eliminate Mossad and CIA networks on its territory. Dozens of groups were neutralized and arrested in several provinces by the forces of Islamic Revolutionary Guard. See that, like I said again, it's like, ugh. The XQC on the Hassan China incident. What? If this is the dude I've talked about many a times because he's like the one of the, again, brief update if you don't know who the Hassan Piker is, largest left streamer on Twitch, huge audiences, usually live viewers range about 30,000. He was under this huge controversy last month about shocking his dog with a shock collar because again, he's this guy that tells everybody to tax the rich. He's an AOC, just not in, not in Congress. But he's all about taxing the rich and, down with the millionaires and billionaires. Mind you, he bought a $3.2 million house a couple years ago. He leased a $200,000 Porsche. Dude is a millionaire. Walks around in $3,000 jackets and like he's a hypocrite, which most of them are. So he preaches to his audience about spreading the wealth. The dude doesn't even pay his mods. The one time he got an editor to come help him out, never paid the guy. So it's like one of those. I don't know what this is. If he was in America and this happened, that's it. His next 35 streams would be about this. A phone search is like end game. Take, for example, an event where he got stuck in an airport. Apparently he made a big deal, and that was 10 times worse. I don't know what this is. How long is this?
But regulations in China are, ironically enough, less aware.
Again, this dude is crazy. Hassan is like, he's so big, like on the leftist thing. Michael Knowles brought him up in the Senate hearing when he was talking about violence and stuff, political violence.
Are less aware of the animosity that exists, which shouldn't exist at all, obviously, but unfortunately does, and it's almost entirely one-sided. But I think the younger populations in China are, ironically enough, less aware. Like the younger normies are less aware of the animosity that exists, which shouldn't exist at all, obviously, but unfortunately does, and it's almost entirely one-sided. We're white, so as foreigners in China at this like national event rather than an international one, where as you guys noticed, like they didn't have any like foreigners there at all.
Okay, that's just too fast for me. Talking about China anyway. Sorry about that. But XQC talks like that in real life. Okay, you know what? We're just gonna finish this. Got like 25 minutes left. I've did enough. We skimmed enough. Let's see. This was such a good debate. I wanted to play this for you all a while, and I probably still won't be able to get through the majority of it tonight. But it's so good. It's to me, it's one of the best. Last year I think it was the biggest debate of 2024. Got the most views and stuff. So let's see. I'm trying to remember where I stopped it last time. This is about where I was. So we're going to continue watching some of this.
Mean that, that we're the same people or we're even in the same place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I don't agree with that. I just see if I have all these texts out, there's a lot of different information that you can see. There's a lot of it's been copied word for word into the biblical text.
But what's the word for word?
In your version of what you believe in, you keep saying that God's a he.
Yep.
And so where do you get that from?
Throughout both the Hebrew Old Testament and the Greek New Testament, you have the masculine singular pronoun used for God.
And why is God a man? Where's the evidence of this?
Well, God isn't a man. See, within historical Christianity, we don't believe that God has a gender. However, the way that he has decided to reveal himself is through the masculine plural, and then ultimately by becoming a human in the person of Jesus Christ. So we don't believe that God has a gender. In fact, the fact that God creates humanity in his image and he creates them male and female, those are two aspects of the image of God. And so that's the completeness. So historical Christianity has never argued that God is gendered. Jesus is gendered in the sense that during the incarnation, he becomes a human man, but he's still fully man and fully God. But God is spirit. And right, as the scripture says, we worship him in spirit and in truth. But nobody's arguing that. What's that? Sorry?
God is the same all the time, right? He's always good. It's always, God is all the same all the time. Right?
Yeah, but we do see that in Scripture, God has revealed himself through the masculine plural. And there are aspects of God's character that we see within Scripture that do actually communicate. Jesus says that he longs to gather Israel like a mother hen collects her chicks. So we see aspects of, the feminine of God, not meaning that God is feminine, but that the image of God reflects both the masculine and the feminine. And that's why when the two become one flesh, there's a uniting of that reflects the image of God as well within the covenant of marriage.
Do you actually believe that the majority of Christians really believe that God is not masculine, that God has both aspects?
I mean, it's irrelevant what the majority of Christians believe.
How many would tell you, that God's not a man? They've never been taught this.
Well, I was taught it growing up. I was taught it in when I was a child, when I went to seminary, when I went to Bible college. I was taught it in graduate school. I would say I would say a few things to that. I would say, in one sense, it's irrelevant what the majority of Christians believe, because what historical biblical Christianity articulates is what they should believe. There are Christians who run around saying all sorts of things that are not in conformity to biblical, historical, Orthodox Christianity. Right. And they shouldn't believe that because it's irrelevant. And so if one Christian believes something that is not in line with biblical Christianity, I mean, that's on them. So God is not gendered, but he does express through inspired scripture the masculine the masculine pronoun.
That's pretty convenient. I mean, for an all-knowing, all-loving God to understand that human beings are going to take that and abuse it to put their boot on the neck of women for eons. It's pretty interesting. Also, I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, I mean, so hold on. Let me speak to that, because it is interesting that
quick, guys, I have to.
Yeah. I mean, there's a really great resource written by a friend of mine, John Dixon. It's a book called Bullies and Saints, where he goes through a lot of the instances of we're obviously going to find abuses, and every human being is going to find a way to exploit whatever is presented to them. So in one sense, I think we can say, isn't it convenient that God used the masculine plural pronoun, the masculine pronoun. I keep saying plural, it's just a mistake. The masculine pronoun. And we can say, oh, sure, that's convenient, maybe, but it is how he has revealed himself to us. And it's not his fault if we abuse that. I mean, we could say, so I grew up in the Middle East. My parents worked in Amman, Jordan. And when I was living in the Middle East, there was a country called the Democratic Republic of Iraq. Now, just because democracy exists and people are going to name things democratic when they obviously aren't, doesn't mean we then judge democracy. I mean, think of the Democratic Republic of North Korea, right? Nobody thinks that that's an actual representation of democracy. So people are always going to abuse terms and ideas and concepts. The difference is, though, I think historically within Judeo-Christianity, you have this ethic that we were talking about before that I think is fundamentally different than what we find in things like the Enuma Elish, the Atrasis, and other things, in that we are created in the image of God. And actually, one of the earliest criticisms of Christianity are by individuals like Celsus, who is a Greco-Roman philosopher in the 2nd century, where he accused Christianity of being foolish, dishonorable, and stupid, and he called it the religion of slaves, women, and children. Why? Not because God used the masculine pronoun for himself and people were abusing that, because the concept that Christians believed in of everybody, no matter what your gender, your race, your social standing, Paul says in Christ there is no slave nor free, there is no Jew nor Gentile, there is no Scythian or barbarian, there's no male nor female. These things united people. And we can see there's a historian named Rodney Stark. And in his book, The Rise of Christianity, he actually says that you can track empirically the agency of women across the ancient world by the movement of Christianity. So that, in other words, whenever an area became populated by Christians, we see a direct correlation with the privileges and treatments of women that expand in time when the surrounding culture largely didn't view women as being fully human. So I think we're always going to have abuses, but if there's one worldview that exists that gives agency to people and says that everybody has worth by nature of being just human, it's the Christian worldview. And that's where I think it's very different. So we can argue about why we think God should or shouldn't have revealed himself in his pronouns, but I think that's actually irrespective of the historical reality that we see within the impact of Christianity, particularly on the West, but around the world, and how it gives agency to the marginalized. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a bit of an unusual household in that my mom grew up in India, and my parents, when I was younger, I was born in Pakistan, and I spent a portion of my childhood in Jordan. I grew up in majority Muslim countries and surrounded by majority Muslim environments. And we had, a copy of the Quran in the room. In fact, we had the Bhagavad Gita and the Book of Mormon, and for a little while, other documents in our house. These were things that my parents, although they never verbally said, Christianity is true, therefore these are not forbidden. These are not verboten. The truth, capital T truth, of the reality of the world we behold can stand up against scrutiny and investigation. And I did do a great deal of that as a kid. My dad is a historian as well. He has a doctorate, and I grew up on him, reading the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. But at the exact same time, the reason why I actually went to university with full intention of going into the police force, but it was interactions with Muslims and Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and atheists and accusations against the credibility of the Bible, which actually piqued my interest, because they would say things that I said that I thought, if that's true, of course that undermines what I believe. I believe that Jesus is God incarnate. If I can't trust the Gospels as reliable first century eyewitness testimony, then I might as well throw all of this away, because I'm not going to believe a lie, even if it's a convenient lie. And so it was actually the exploration of eventually going into graduate college and then now in working on my PhD, the largest secular university in Canada, that got me thinking, okay, how do we investigate these things? What are the methodologies by which we go about to explore the origins and credibility of something like the Bible? And that investigation, with all due respect to Billy and the content that you put out, has actually confirmed what I believe. I'm dealing with the actual manuscripts. I travel to academic institutions, to other countries, and I look at these things and I read them. And it's a privilege to be able to learn languages like Greek and Coptic and Hebrew and Aramaic and dig into these things. And I think ultimately, I really appreciate what you said there, Mark, with your articulation of your personal relationship. And I think that's so important. But I think it's also important to remember that that relationship is based on something that's real and verifiable. And we can look into the evidence. I have friends who are linguists, philologists, and historians. And when we look into these things, and
He had like some technical stuff going on. So sometimes his internet stream would kind of hang up, but that's why I did the full moderator removed. So hopefully that was cleaned up a little bit.
And we talk with one another, and we're constantly trying to falsify our theories, because that's what good history does. We're looking for the falsification. You don't go in, ideally, if you want to be a good historian, with trying to prove your original thesis. You go in and say, okay, what are the avenues that actually could disprove this? And then how do we engage with those in an appropriate and articulate manner? So what I believe is true, but I believe it based on the evidence of the actual documentation. I've read a lot of the literature that you're talking about, Billy, the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis, the Bhagavad Gita, the Epic of Gilgamesh, and I've read some of them in their original languages because I've tried to be a good historian and go back into the primary sources. Or if I can't, engage with people like my friends who are Assyriologists, who are philologists, and try to not just go off of a translation, but the original. And I think I've found largely the opposite of the conclusions that you have made, Billy. And I know that you are very passionate about what you talk about, and I respect that. I just think that the confidence might not actually be backed up by the reality of the evidence. So when we're looking at something like the Sinai Bible, when we're looking at something like the Gospel of Barnabas, when we're looking at something like the Gospel of Jesus' wife, these are things that actually have provenance that we can verify. And ultimately, I think the answers to the questions of the legitimacy or the illegitimacy of those things point to not just a different conclusion, but actually the opposite conclusion, and that Christianity is true.
Well, now I'm glad you said that. So those three topics are a very small piece of my concept and idea of what really happened in the ancient past. So that's a very small fraction. That's less than 0.1%. You talk about eyewitness accounts to convince you that Christianity is real. There's been eyewitness accounts of every culture that I've visited around this entire planet, and their eyewitness accounts of what they experienced is 100,000% opposite of what's in the Bible. People have
based on what do you mean? Can you give me an example?
The Dogon tribe, for example, in Mali, Africa, they experienced a culture that they claim came to this planet from Sirius B. They have the evidence that they knew these beings were from Sirius B because they have the instruments that show the orbit of a trinary star system that we couldn't discover until the 1970s with our modern technology. Okay, they understood not only the orbital pattern of Sirius A, B, and C, but even that B was a failed star, which you can't see it from Earth with the naked eye. They knew that it was a white dwarf. They even knew that they said that if you took a tablespoon of it, the entire tribe or 1,000 men couldn't lift the tablespoon. They understood mass and gravity as well. They were told the shape, the sizes, and the colors of all the planets in our solar system, which they recorded. And there's only one wisdom keeper, and that person can never be touched by a person. If they get touched by another person, they'd actually be killed. And then they eventually have a mentee that they break down that verbally handed down knowledge to. And that next person then takes over and becomes the wisdom keeper. And they've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. And science, modern science, has found all their information to be 1,000% accurate. Then you have the Hopi tribe of the Americas, indigenous tribes, Hopi tribe, Lakota tribe, also having engagements with these quote unquote star brothers, even having an account of them being taken underground, which you don't see just only in America. I just came back from Turkey. You have the people from Turkey in Mesopotamia also being taken underground into a place called Derinkuyu by these beings, by these people, a structure that's built 12 stories deep underground, that's made out of volcanic tuff, a very soft stone. And if you don't know what you're doing, it'll actually collapse. There's no evidence of any collapse. And it was thousands of years.
Yeah, that's the one thing about Billy is that like you can tell he's done a lot of research. He gets books mixed up, and I don't agree with him at all with how he tries to conflate one thing with like the other. But you can tell he has read a lot of this stuff. Like even Wes gives him props for that. It's just how he's kind of twisted it to, I don't know, like form a narrative, it feels like.
Years old. It was reused many times. So the mainstream story about what it was used for to hide from Romans is actually false. This place is ancient. And in order to build it, you actually have to have foreknowledge of how to construct this type of an underground civilization that can hold 20 to 30,000 people, places for livestock, places for worship, with no sign of collapse. Then you have to have hundreds of ventilation shafts. And I've been down there. Those ventilation shafts cut through solid rock all the way down to the core. And there's even more. It links to other underground cities that are miles and miles away. As you get to the very base of this area, you can cut through and go to another location. But again, these people were taken under. Also, then you have the ancient Egyptians. Similar story. Major catastrophe comes. these people come and take them underground. Then you have the information in the Egyptian book
Yeah.
of going forth by day. More
Well, say an educated fool. I get the point, though. Yeah, like it's some people can think they're too smart for their own good. Like they become so dug in their ideology that they won't let it go. Like no matter how much evidence is provided, the otherwise, it's like they won't let it go. You know.
accounts by people, our ancestors, that have accounts that do not match up with the biblical text. And so all of a sudden we're saying that all these cultures,
Hey, Pano. Oh, I will. Let's please check your rooms. Okay. Oh, is it Veterans Day? Oh, my Lord, y'all. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'd have done something totally different. I've been trying to deal with my dad's insurance stuff. It's a whole thing. By the way, if you're on any kind of like United Healthcare, my dad got sent a letter a couple weeks ago saying that they were ending his insurance as of December the 31st. By the way, as most of y'all know, he got diagnosed with cancer. How convenient. And so I've been trying to figure out, I think he's going to an AARP. So hopefully, I'm just nervous because he's 81, and now they're dropping his insurance with United Healthcare. It's a whole thing. So I'm sorry. And I love my fat electrician guy. Dadgummit, y'all. Let's see if I can figure out something for that. Thanks, Pano, for reminding me.
bad people, I can go into them as well. I've gone
Sure,
to
sure.
walkabouts
Do you mind?
in Outback, in the Outback,
Yeah.
and the Aboriginal elders, same thing. They were seated here by Pleiadians. This is their verbal handed down history for thousands of years. And I can go around the world and I can come up with all this information from all
Thanks, Mac Mama. Yeah, my dad's stuff is just kind of.
these eyewitness accounts from people that should be respected, dignified, and shouldn't be scoffed. And that we're now saying that all this information that they put forward, all their verbal handed down history, all their written history, that's got to go to the side because this one text is 1,000% accurate.
Sure, but so my question is, most of that is oral history, correct?
Oh, it's all oral history, even the Bible.
Okay, so when we're engaging with oral history, what methodologies are you using to confirm that the orality is accurate?
Oh man. Well, first and foremost, some of these texts some of these cultures have written down information in caves. You've got cave paintings. The Dogon tribe actually have not only written down.
Sure. No, I don't disagree with that. The question is one of historic. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. The question is one of methodological analysis. So you have to have a method by which you can find either that something is falsifiable or that there are avenues by which you can show internal and external accuracy of credibility. So this is what we do with documents. This is what we do with the ancient Gospels. This is what I do. I've worked on Xenophon and Plutarch. And we look at the internal evidences and the external multivalent corroboration to try to figure out, okay, yes, we have all these stories. Great. I don't deny that. But as a historian, as someone who's trying to figure out what is accurate, how do you know if I use the term verisimilitude, do you know what that term means?
No, but I can tell you this. Tell me how the Dogon tribe saw Sirius B, knew the orbit of Sirius B, a trinary star system, accurately, and can show you the orbit with a special tool that they made that was given to them by these people. How do they know the shapes, the sizes, the colors, and the orbital pattern of all these planets in our solar system and other star alignments that they would use to have something called the Ziggy and planet and their own harvesting and planting and so forth and so on? That's not enough evidence that there's something.
Well, I'm not aware of that particular case. And even, I would grant that, the ancient people are far more technological advanced than we give themselves credit for. Just because they're ancient doesn't mean they're stupid. I am well aware, as someone who has done both investigation of the past and done archaeological analysis, that is a reality. My question is simply, okay, you have these stories or you have these accounts, you're referring to them as eyewitness testimony. How are you going about verifying that as that?
Well, if the people had eyewitness testimony about Jesus, they then just wrote down their eyewitness testimony on a piece of paper or parchment paper or papyrus. So these people,
Right. So that's where internal methodological analysis.
Some of it's actually written down. So I mean, it's the same exact thing. There's really no difference.
Well, no. So you do internal investigations to figure out when something was dated. So something like so when I used that term verisimilitude before, that's something we as historians are looking for. It's a term that simply means the appearance or likelihood of truthfulness. So when you do historical analysis, it's an inference to the best explanation. So you have proof and you have data, and you're extrapolating that data on levels of probability. So some things can be confirmed as high probabilistically true, and other things are lower in their probability that they happened. But there are different methodologies, different ways that you explore historically how that happens.
Well,
So for the Gospels, we look at
with the Dogon tribe. Scientists went there to visit the tribe, and they still have no answers because they used their modern science. They took the best scholars to visit these people, and they're still scratching their heads. Something happened there.
sure.
that
And
doesn't-
and I'm not even denying that necessarily, but the question is, okay, we need different levels of evidence and exploration, not just scientifically, but historically, to derive something as eyewitness testimony. Now we have mountains of that, and I'm more than willing to go into some of that with the Gospels as early eyewitness testimony that can be verified externally and internally. But nonetheless, the only reason I ask, Billy, is because I've listened to a fair amount of your content, and I'm unaware of the methods that you use to try to discern between what is an accurate source historiographically and an inaccurate source historiographically.
Well,
Does that make sense?
I use getting in an airplane and traveling to these places, doing my own research, talking with the indigenous cultures, and researching as much of the text that is available that I can possibly find.
Okay. So I don't dispute that. And I do believe you have done that. But I mean, even from what we've talked about, so you've researched the text, but when we talked about the crucifixion, everything you cited was either, and I mean with all due respect, false in terms of the Sinai Bible, because Codex Sinaiticus is just a 4th century Greek manuscript of the Gospels that we have today, or they were verified forgeries in terms of the Gospel of Jesus' wife and the Gospel of Barnabas.
You may be right on that particular part of the topic, but like I said, that's less than 0.1% of the information that I hold.
Sure, but that was the original question. So yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, okay, well, so I'm going off of what we've already talked about. So you said you explore the text. I don't deny that. But the evidence, by going off of what you have put forward in terms of the actual documentary evidence, is not just less than convincing in my respect. And I mean this with respect, because I think you have done a lot of research. You've traveled to these places. I have too. Like, this is what I do as my career. But I'm not really getting indication, because in history, we go to the primary sources in their primary languages. And when Mark asked, okay, why do you deny the crucifixion? The sources you used were not primary.
Okay, we're still talking about the same thing over and over again. There's so much more we can talk about here. We're wasting a lot of time. There's so much more. That's this amount.
Do you guys?
Sure. When you read Azazel coming down in the Book of Enoch, coming down, and the first thing he does is teach people how to make knives and swords so they can cut a man's head off. You read, you see these quote unquote.
Where's that in the Book of Enoch?
In the Book of Enoch, Azazel. He comes down and he teaches.
Where is that in the Book of Enoch? Is it the only reason I ask is because there are two Enochs, first Enoch and second Enoch, and only first Enoch is an actual historical amalgamation.
Okay. And then you analyze the fact that these angels are having sex, they're getting drunk.
Oh, Lord.
These are just people.
Whoa.
As they plug your ear holes like that, he's like, whoa.
Where are angels getting drunk?
Angels party. They go. They hang out with people. They go to war with people. They put on their outfits and go to war with people. This is
where are they getting drunk though?
They get married. Okay, whatever that means. But they're having.
They don't get married.
Okay, not
in fact, Scripture says that angels can't get
like
married.
Merry Christmas.
Not married. Mary, Merry. But the point that I'm making here is when you start to really analyze what these angels are doing, and you start to analyze how many people are dying.
like if y'all are a lot better at this than me even sometimes too. Y'all probably see a lot more. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time that Billy has ever sat down with someone like educated enough on the Bible. He knows those Greek and Hebrew to kind of debate him on some of the things that Billy has said. Again, as far as I know, this is the only time Billy's ever done it with someone that kind of really knows what they're talking about. I think that's why it had such a big impact. If y'all know of others, even if like you're the pro Billy side and you think he carried his own, please feel free to like send that to me. Like if you're on my ex, or that's probably the easiest way I see that the most. But I want it to be, with all due respect, I want it to be like him actually sitting down and doing this, like having a back and forth. I don't really try to stay away from, when it comes to these topics, like the person just sitting there lecturing you on how the other person was wrong. Because to me, in real time, like these debates like this are really good ways to flush it out. If it's just the person sitting there, although they can be good, sometimes it's typically a lot of just like they're not challenged. You know what I mean? So it's like just their word. This is what they're saying, and then you have to go kind of dig through it all yourself. This is an easy way, and you may say a lazy way, to watch someone kind of falter in some of the things they've said because they're challenged by somebody that knows the books, right?
Text, you start to say, well, how many people did Satan actually kill? And when you start doing the tally on the numbers, God's doing most of the killing in the Bible. It's not the devil that's doing all the killing. And then God says in Isaiah, I created the good and I created the evil. Do what I say at the Lord. So he's saying that he's doing the good and the evil. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
My personal opinion on this whole thing, I just let me get this out because we keep going over the same rhetoric over and over again. My personal opinion is that the biblical text is a good book. Like I've said, I've got videos. My number one video on Twitter has me saying this. It's good text because if you actually apply some of the information that's in the Bible, you can get a good result, like you have done, Mark. So because you can get a good result, but there's a lot of misinformation in the Bible. There's a lot of false information that's copied from ancient text. And if you go by that text, all of a sudden you end up with 400 years of slavery.
How are you talking about, Pano, that said she was on a boomer sub? Who are you talking about? Who said that?
You end up with abuse. You end up with divide and conquer tactics that separate people. You end up with people thinking that they're the chosen ones and they're the chosen people. And we've been promised this promised land so we can eradicate another race of people because this is.
All right, Tats, I saw you pop in. If you ever want to say anything for those together, you just key up, okay?
Our land because God promised it to us. You have people that want to go on the papal inquisitions and torture and kill and murder over 80 million people. You have the American Holocaust, 111 million indigenous natives slayed. You have all this going on because of this text, which is...
That's good. It says, Proverbs says, don't argue with the fool, least people can tell the difference. You'd be amazed at how much I've come around more, especially during the Trump era and the earlier times where it was like you would try to have these conversations with people. I've got to the point now where I just make my feelings known, post my comment. I don't do the arguing. I don't continue on with trying to argue with somebody that just is, scroll up, conversation with a woman. Oh, that's cool. Well, thank you, Pano. I can only, let me just show you. Okay. If you saw my screen, it's full of chats. Just trust me on that.
It's set up so contradictory throughout its path across time. You get into the New Testament, slavery is still being condoned in the New Testament.
Was it?
Honor thy slave master as you would honor God or Jesus, it says, I believe.
So free will.
So Ephesians.
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't say that. But
the God of the Old Testament too. I'll let you real quick, but I'm just.
It did say, slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear as sincerity of heart as you would obey Christ. That's slaves. Obey your earthly masters with respect and fear with sincerity in your heart, just as you would obey Christ. So it does say that Ephesians 6:5, but there's so many aspects.
That stuff is what.
And what is the context of what Ephesians is saying? So I think this is very important because we don't take text in isolation. So within Scripture, and this is why all the abolition movements throughout history have only been Judeo-Christian movements. There's never been an abolition movement that wasn't Christian. And actually, there's the recent work by historian Tom Holland, not the Spider-Man actor, different Tom Holland, but his recent Dominion highlights this fact very well. This is not a Christian, but in it, he shows that going right back into the antiquity with the Cappadocian Fathers was the first abolition movement, and then into the British and the American abolition movements. These were fundamentally Christian movements ran by Christians because of the idea that when Paul, who wrote that letter to Ephesians, says, in Christ there is no slave nor free, he's breaking down those barriers. So in Ephesians, when he says, slaves obey your masters, he's operating on the socioeconomic context of what he's going on. And he's saying, hey, we have slaves and we have free people, okay? If you're a believing slave, if you're a slave who believes in Jesus as the Messiah, don't be equitable in how you are living your life. Reflect Christ accurately. And that's a movement that he is fundamentally working towards, that eventually starts to completely take out the legs from the slave movement in general.
I would be
so there's a discipline called hermeneutics, and that's the methodology.
Yeah, he's Canadian. Hang on, I'm only after a couple minutes anyway. Powders asked for his website. So look next to Magnolia Jane. That's what my tree blooms every year. That's the color of him, and it's a rebloomer. You just look up his name, and it's right here. It's literally his name. Just FYI. It is his name.
Methodology of interpretation.
There you go,
so there are multiple levels that you interpret something. So whether we're dealing with, say, the book of Ephesians, or we're dealing with Tacitus's Annals, we look at something and we contextually read it within the framework of how it's being written. So there's a historical approach where we look at the context. Okay, Paul is writing to a church in Ephesus. What's going on in Ephesus, and how is what he's saying in that city in what is modern day Turkey, how does that pertain to that particular time and framework? Where is Paul coming from? So the Bible was written for us, but it wasn't written to us. There is an original—
That's such a good way of putting the Bible written for us, but it wasn't written to us.
Audience, whether that's the ancient Israelite in the ancient Near Eastern culture, or whether it's the Greco-Roman believer in Jesus within the city of Ephesus. So as historians, and I mean, most of the books on this end of my shelf are what are referred to as commentaries.
Sorry, I got to cut you off.
So you do have—
Well, I almost got there, like 20 minutes left. I'll still keep it to that time slot. But he's done a lot of good things, like should you believe the Bible or trust the Bible? I think like there's a couple episodes he's done of that. So we spent the first half of the show going through Twitter and doing some new stuff, and the second half trying to get through a little bit more of that debate, which I just think was really well done. Again, I appreciate those debates. I used to try and watch they call it blood sport debate, but I just couldn't do it. Like all the yelling and the screaming over each other and all that. Like I actually want to hear what the other person's saying. So I like God Logic. He runs a pretty tight ship when he debates. I just watched a debate with him Hebrew Israelites. That was interesting. But he debates everybody: Muslim, Jews, Hebrew Israelites, atheist. Like he just, he's defends Christianity against anybody. So but he keeps it civil, which is cool. How y'all fellas doing? Oh, there's Miss Sassy Q and Salty Sleep. Oh, y'all are all up in the house. Scroll over. I had to scroll over. I was like, oh, there's Sassy. I saw the cartoon thing, and then I seen Tets first in the room, and then I was like, oh God, I gotta span over. How y'all doing?
Good. How you doing, Soko?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Good to see you, Sassy.
You too.
I don't get to see you very often. I'm in bed. So
what's up, Laura?
Hello. What's up, Sleep? Hello, Miss Salty.
Hey.
How you doing again, Laura?
I'm good.
Long time no see.
I know. Mo's been kind of going through it. So she'll text me. She's been in the hospital, and I'm just like, Sonny's been picking up quite a bit. And if I'm around, I'll swing it. I don't mind at all. if I can. So
we
just
love you, Mo.
Yeah.
And that's
Prayers
nice of
up,
you to
prayers up.
Yep.
love you, Mo.
Absolutely. Prayers up.
Praying for you, Mo.
Oh, she
Right.
said she got home about 2 hours ago. That's good to hear, Mo.
Oh, thank
Cool.
goodness. Yeah.
That's good news.
Good. Well, I try to do it if I'm around, with you too, Salty. Like if they're that time and you was like, hey, you want to hang out? I was like, sure. Remember I stayed on with you and then I wound up staying on with Dawn as well. I was like, ooh, that was a stretch for me.
Yeah. Sometimes you just get the urge, to hang out and
Yeah, but you cut your
everything's
teeth on
rolling.
those long stretches.
Yes, ma'am. Me and Dead Cat, man, he was my bud. Those are some of my best memories. Me and him, yeah, for sure. When people talk about the earlier days, I remember Q Trooper would tell me she would wake up, she would go to sleep with the soapbox playing, and she said, "I just remember your like Southern voice at like 2:30 in the morning because I'd have her laptop up and I'd hear you talking, me and Dead Cat going through it." But we've all been there, all of y'all, everybody in this room. Actually, it's kind of amazing. Salty
yeah.
and Sleep and Tets and you, Sassy, and Toots. Just a tiny bit later, but still, y'all were. When we were like pulling some hours.
Yeah.
Marathons. They were
I didn't have to do a
marathons.
lot of talking when I was on with Dead Cat, though. We did a Christmas Eve show one night, and he was going on, one of his really long monologues, and I was reading chat, and somebody in chat said Sassy could go make a stack and wash the dishes, and he'd never noticed she was gone.
That was the great thing about Discord too. So you weren't here. Were you around Toots when we had Discord? Did you ever come in?
I wasn't really on those long marathons that you guys did, and the Discord. I never was really good with the Discord. I didn't. I was very computer unsavvy at the time.
Well, we started in Discord, and that's the part of it I loved and missed is we would all get in the voice room, and so it was like all of us would be in there. So what Sassy's talking about, like somebody had to get up and go walk their dog or go to the bathroom, or like Ninja. I would never forget Ninja because he ran that store, and we'd hear on the mic go doo doo, and everybody knew that was Ninja's front door. So he would mute up, go take care of the customer. But there was so many of us up in the room, it was not a big deal, right?
Yeah, until they freaking put the kibosh on us.
Right. We're trying to start that back up though, Tets, hopefully.
I'm
Now
not going to use that app ever again.
YouTube, ScrewTube.
No, not ScrewTube.
Discord.
I'm talking about Discord.
Oh, Discord. Discord was like the Wild Wild West.
I got it loaded on both computers, and I'm going to unload it and uninstall it. So
Yeah, Gilded is going away.
Yeah, we have to use something. Unfortunately, I don't have the luxury
Well,
of
would you want to be part of Roblox anyway?
I know. That's why it's not that big of a deal, right? But unfortunately with PSP, I have to have rooms where I could put all this information. It don't disappear. It has to be user friendly. It has to be where people have access. And to be fair, I mean, Discord provides so many different like bots and stuff, like to do call-ins. Like remember how Pam and 412 used to do their show? Like it would make it easier for people doing shows to do call-ins like that instead of trying to download Google numbers and all that. I'm talking too much. Y'all start y'all show.
Soko, a quick what about doing just a chat room on X? Just having put everybody's name on X, and this way you could just.
The problem is the information. Like I need rooms to be able to store information, like chat logs, spam logs, on-air tools. Somebody loses Zoom access, just
separate
stuff.
servers.
Oh,
yeah.
I got you.
So that's if you look in our servers, I have rooms, right? Like what videos can we play, on-air tools, like all that stuff is segmented out. So like if you need to go get information quickly, you can find it fairly quickly. That's the kind of organization I have to have. Like that's why I couldn't get attached to Element because it was all encrypted. So I logged back in there, all my shit be missing. And I just ain't got that kind of time.
Anybody still using Elements? I haven't logged on to that bitch in 2 years.
That shit was garbage. But anyway, Discord worked, so I guess that's where we're at.
Yeah, Salty volunteered to drag all the information.
Element.
Oh yeah,
Salty what?
I said Salty volunteered to keep up with all the notes and help, keep up with all the information. She doesn't know it yet. So he live on air tonight, folks, on Veterans Day. I'm letting y'all know Salty has volunteered for the job. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, Salty. She was just... Go ahead.
No, I said, how is she?
Well, you was being so quiet, I had to get you involved into how I normally do it. It's like, what? What'd you say about me? I will
Talking
do
about
no
quiet,
such
Maggie
thing.
just bounced in the room and didn't say a word to
Oh, look
anybody.
at that.
He just hangs out in the corner like,
yo.
everything's cool.
And I want to
He's
say
tuning up to
something.
What am
Spider
I,
Ukulele.
chopped liver?
I don't
was
know.
hanging
You
out in the
tell me.
marathons.
Yo,
I was hanging out in the marathons.
No, you
were.
were.
I had to go to work.
100%.
I had to go to work at like 2 hours later. It was crazy.
Oh, I
I
didn't
was
even,
excited.
I
was
didn't
excited.
see you,
Being
Maggot.
up all night.
There's so many
Yo,
of you in the room, I couldn't see you, so I apologize. Sorry, go
There's
ahead.
too many of us.
yo, Swags. I
haven't been
It's
here
a
in months.
crowded room.
I
it
want to
is.
just say something about Thursday's show that Tets and Sleepy missed an amazing time hanging out.
Oh yeah, with
Oh, I'm
With
sorry, I did
Salty's
miss that. I
mom,
was looking
yeah.
forward to it, but I was
We had the
I was
Simmons
under
project.
the weather.
I know. It was just a shame. It was such a really amazing time hanging out with your family, Salty, and
Yeah, well, I had a good
great.
time too.
Yeah,
Had
that
a
was
good time.
awesome. The both of them are just amazing people, by the way. And
Not for nothing. I did go back and take a little peek here and there, and the apple does not fall very far from the tree. I was like, "Is that Salty? No, that's her mother."
dude, I said the
Actually,
same
it looked
thing.
more like my dad too, which
I
is so
said
crazy.
this. I said the same thing when I saw that. When I saw her mother's picture, I says, "Oh my God, Salty, you are your mother. You look just like your mom." That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. It was great. It was a
Thanks.
great time, and I'm sure Salty will have them back on again.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Of course, yeah. Light switch says fully staffed. Indeed, we are.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Very glad.
We might even have Maggie trying to come co-host.
Oh boy.
Little baby.
Yeah.
Little
Our feral
baby.
toddler.
A feral toddler.
So everybody's
Well,
good? Hello,
we're
everyone.
ready.
What's up, chat? What's up, y'all? How you guys tonight? You all good in here? Are we good?
Dynamite.
Are we good? Are we good?
Well, it's my first time back in a month, so family
I know.
room. I have to apologize. It's been a very, very rough month. I've lived to tell about it, but hey, things came up. Shit happens.
Yeah.
It's been tough, but I'm unscathed as far as that goes. And tomorrow makes 4 weeks booze free. So
Yay.
Good
Congratulations.
for you, brother. That's
it's rough. It's rough, but it's doable.
Uh-huh.
I did it.
man.
I did the
It's worth
second
it.
half of
It's
my
worth it.
enlistment totally on the wagon, so it's no big deal. But it's a work in progress.
I love it. And if you do fall off one time, don't worry. Just get right back on again. Don't kick yourself in the ass over it.
Yeah, it's no big deal. I done half my enlistment was totally clean and sober, duty driver, this, that, and the other. So 11 years of that. 3 months is not going to kill me.
You'll be fine.
Exactly.
You will survive.
You will survive. Yo,
First I was afraid.
and I got some news too. So I got a job, and today was my first day at work.
Oh, that's right. Tuesday.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
I got it. Yeah, so because I was going through some tough times myself, but I got the job. Everything went well. I got to get up tomorrow at like 5 a.m. So I don't know how late I'm going to last tonight.
Oh, wait a minute. Now feel my pain now, mother. Feel my pain.
I know. I
now.
go. I gotta get into a routine. I'm trying to figure out my routine. You know, like today they had me